taking notes by hand is good for us. Let's dig into how exactly we do it. Rule 1, write fast. Seriously. Writing fast is part of the skill. Now, remote learning is actually like the ideal format for this because the videos are shorter than a class session, so you have to write fast for a shorter period of time. In real education, I work students up to where I might lecture the whole hour. They'll be taking notes for the whole hour. They will complain that their hand hurts at the end of class. That's good, because it means they're getting stronger. Anyway, if you're going to do a good job, you're going to have to write fast to keep up. You must steal or invent a system of abbreviations and symbols. As I mentioned before, this is going to help you learn in real time, remember later. It's also going to help you go faster. Of course, you want to get down the text on the slides, because that's important. There tends to be not too much slide. There tends to be not an excess of text on my slides, and that's true of any effective PowerPoint presenter. The worst presenters, their slides are just like a text dump, and you're so busy writing down what's on the slide that it's hard to focus on what the person is saying. There's a bad habit some note takers have of the slide comes up and they just start copying down the slide text, and they're not listening to the instructor until they're done writing down the slide text. Now, I animate my lectures to make that harder to do, because I know I like to help people avoid temptations where possible. Even if text is visible before I've started talking about it, wait until I'm talking about that thing to write down that thing, because the slide text is an outline. It is a frame, and my teaching and that of other effective presenters is filling in that frame as we go. So it's good to stay in sync with the instructor as you're writing stuff down, so that you're getting down both the outline and the key details. It's important that you write down what I am saying about the slide text. That's the money part. That's where the teaching is happening. Taking notes is not just copying the slide text. Every year I have some kids who think that if all they do is copy down the words that are on the slide, they have successfully taken notes. That is not successful note-taking. What you have there is a skeleton. The slide text is a skeleton. It is a dead thing that cannot move and is not alive. The lecture, the words that the teacher is saying, those are the brain, the muscle, the ligament, the tendons, the stuff that make it awake and alive, meaningful. The slide text by itself often will not make sense, but when you add the key details, then you have coherence. Now, there occasionally will be some fat in the lecture, and you don't need to get that down. Like in the civics lesson number 1, I gave some details about Franklin Roosevelt and his 4 freedoms. I clearly advertised that as optional material. You didn't have to write it down. So let's take a look at my notes on that first lesson. See how it compares to yours. Now, you can see that I'm getting down the slide text, but I'm also adding stuff. Now, I don't need you to highlight your notes like this. I highlighted my notes like this to show you something in this lesson. There are, the highlighting that a person would do for review is something different. What I highlighted here is everything I wrote down that wasn't exactly on the slide, right? The date of the lecture. You always want to get the date of the lecture and the title of the lecture, right? Because these are helpful for reference. And I'm copying down slide text. I'm abbreviating it. That's my abbreviation for constitutional. And I did this in real time, by the way. I watched my own video and I took notes to my own video in real time. And so, I wrote down this business about how everyone has the right to life, liberty, and property. I jotted down that that's in the 5th and 14th Amendments, that that's in the Constitution. This was in the First Amendment. Note that my abbreviation for American and my abbreviation for amendments is the same, which could be confusing, but it doesn't confuse me because I know that if there's a number in front of it, I'm talking about amendments or an amendment, as opposed to any context where there's not a number in front of it. This abbreviation to me in my note-taking system means American and Americans. You don't have to use my abbreviation system. I just wanted to point out that this would be possibly confusing to other people, but it's not confusing to me. And what's important is that your notes make sense to you, right? So you're going to adopt an abbreviation and a symbol system that works for you. Right, so I'm taking down some slide text. I add the note that the ban on government racial discrimination is in the Constitution, whereas the ban on sex discrimination is actually from the Civil Rights Act of 1964. What I should have mentioned in that lecture is that there is, at the state level, in Washington State, in the Washington State Constitution, there is an equal rights amendment. So women are guaranteed equal rights by law in the state of Washington. But the federal protection remains flimsy. It exists only in law, not in the Constitution at this point. And I noted that education, all right, that's my abbreviation for education, that right is in the state constitution. For privileges, I heard my instructor say that these are privileges because one needs to register or get a license in order to do these things. And then I'm taking down the list of benefits and I'm annotating them because I'm listening to my instructor that public safety and U.S. mail are mentioned as benefits in the Constitution, that this is my abbreviation for regulations. I just write regs. And these regulations are in federal and state law. I wrote down that Social Security and Medicare are benefits for the elderly that comprise most of the federal budget. I heard my teacher say that, and I thought that sounded pretty important. And I wrote that the mortgage tax deduction promotes home ownership. And I actually explained the mortgage tax deduction really badly. I was embarrassed when I was listening to myself. The mortgage tax deduction works like this. However much money you pay on your mortgage in any given year, you get to deduct from your income, right? So if you made $100,000 in a year, but you paid $40,000 of that on your mortgage, on your house payments, then your taxable income is like $60,000, right? So income that you spend on buying a house, you don't have to pay income tax on. That's how the mortgage income tax deduction works. Sorry about that. And then, while my teacher told me I didn't have to write down that FDR Four Freedoms thing, I was a history buff in high school, so I would have totally written that down. You don't have to be a nerd like me. When the teacher tells you you don't need to know this stuff, it's totally okay for you not to write that down. Now, going on, I'm taking down slide text, but I'm clearly distinguishing between musts and shoulds. That distinction the teacher made verbally, but was not on the slide text, but I am a note taker, so I got that down. Right, here's my abbreviation for male, because the draft only applies to males at this time. I noted that these shoulds, voting and staying informed, are the reason that we're in this class, and that voluntarism is the reason that there's a community service requirement. I took down the school board as an example of voluntarism. And then when the teacher got to rights of citizens and then got into the rights of non-citizens versus the undocumented, I made a command decision to just make a chart because it's like the same list, right? Both groups get nearly all the same rights. Privileges are a little different, most for non-citizens, for legal non-citizens, but only some for the undocumented. Only some benefits, and and they have pretty much the same, all the responsibilities, except they can't get drafted, so And then, putting myself in, imagining myself as a high school student who might know what Medicaid and SNAP were, I put a little question mark there to remind myself. I should have highlighted the question mark because it wasn't in the notes. It wasn't, I'm sorry, it wasn't on the slide text. That was my reminder to self to ask my instructor, hey, what's Medicaid and SNAP? Medicaid is government health insurance for low-income Americans. SNAP is food assistance. They used to be called food stamps because they used to be books of paper stamps, but now you get your benefits loaded on a card, and you can just pay with that card when you're at the supermarket. So that's what my lecture notes look like. I'm sure yours are probably pretty good too, but by going through this lesson, we've seen sort of what the expectations are, and you are one step closer to devising your own effective individual technique for taking notes. Thanks, everybody. Bye.